Good evening, Palm Bay. How is everyone doing? Welcome to another Palm Bay Live session. Tonight, I have in the studio with me Mr. John Hearton. He's running for the U.S. House of Representative for District 8. Welcome to the platform, Mr. Hearton. How are you doing?
Doing great, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Glad you can join us tonight. I know this is a busy night for activities in the political spectrum. We have the ongoing Palm Bay City Council meeting. I'm having somebody help me monitor that uh, tonight because we have a lot of different issues that may come out of that meeting. But
I've heard
you're
it.
and I'm glad you're here. And hopefully, we have some more audience participation tonight, folks. As always, we've been doing these interviews. You can ask questions of the candidates while we do them in real time. And let's get this on the way. So, Mr. Hurton, welcome to the platform again. Can you start by telling us a little about yourself and do a little bit of opening? Introduce yourself to the audience, to the voters, and let them know more about you, your background, your top priorities, and what you hope to achieve um, if you are successful in winning this election.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. First of all, Kevin, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come out and speak to the folks in Palm Bay and elsewhere that might be listening in tonight. We've got a lot of activities that have been going on. As for me, I'll start by introducing myself. My name is John Hearton. I usually say I am your anti-establishment candidate. And the reason why I say that is because I'm looking to support the people. I know who I will be working for, unlike many of the representatives that have been up there that are focused on special interest and career politics and those kinds of activities. So this is something new for me. I'm a businessman, not a bureaucrat. I've had a couple of successful businesses, sold one twice actually, and also had turned some companies around quite a bit and made them quite successful. So I like helping out and doing the right thing by the people and making sure that there's opportunities for everybody. My first company that I started was back in 1990, end of 1998. Grew it to where we had about 750 employees at its peak, and then sold that in 2009. I stayed on as the chief technologist and then sold that company in 2014. Turned around and took over a company called Mandex and grew it. It was on a little bit of a slide. Grew it from about 300% in 4 years. It wound up being first time in their 50 years of business, being on the Washington Business Journal Fast 50 and Inc. 5000 for 2 years in a row. What qualifies me? Well, the people do. The people make the votes, and they're the ones that actually make the decisions on who is going to represent them. The question becomes is, do they want a lobbyist? Do they want a career politician? Do they want the status quo? My answer was no, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I didn't want to be in a situation where I think we're all tired of politics as usual. I think that we've had enough of that, and we're trying to get out there and make a difference. So we want to save our God-given rights for our future generations and do what we can to allow them to live the American dream like we used to. And now I think a lot of those things are in jeopardy, but I believe that God's given us the opportunity to go ahead and turn this around and try and make good things happen. So.
Awesome, sir. Thanks for the introduction. Now, Palm Bay, Brevard County. This I've just shared it with a lot of folks across the spectrum. So hopefully, a lot of folks tune in tonight. I'm going to need your favor. Please hit the like button, hit the share button, and let's help get this message out. So go ahead and hit the like button, hit the share button, and let's help get this message out. So again, smack the like button, smack the share button. If you're on YouTube, and I know I have some audience members on YouTube right now watching, go ahead and smack that like button and hit that share button, and let's help get this message out. And let's begin the interview. So you recently won the Brevard County Republican Executive Committee straw poll, which is a significant accomplishment, sir.
Thank
How
you
do
very
you
much.
feel about the victory, and how do you plan to build on the momentum heading into the primary election?
Well, I don't take it for granted. Obviously, it was a pleasant surprise. I don't think that I was the expected appointee or person that was garnered the best opportunity to go ahead and do it. But we've done a lot with our ground game. We have had a lot of grassroots folks that have been out there pounding the pavement and helping out and trying to do what they can to make sure that their voices are heard. So again, this is a situation where we're trying to have our interests taken care of and not special interests, where we're trying to make sure that lobbyists and the uniparty and the NGOs and so forth don't control our government, that we, the people, control our government. We have to be remember that at the end of the Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln said that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall never perish. And that is what we need to remember, is that our founding fathers gave us a responsibility that this constitutional republic would be a government that is run by the people. And we need to take heed on that and understand that we all have a responsibility. And while I want you to hold me accountable, I want to be holding you accountable too, to participate in the process and make sure that we are doing the right thing for our country.
Okay, great. So recent reports have raised concerns about your business background and your work as a Virginia-based government contractor. I want to give you a chance to address the concerns if you want.
Well,
So the
it was an obvious hit piece by my biggest competitor. I think the term "poor loser" winds up coming to mind. It was a situation that hit right after the straw poll. They wound up not being. They were expecting to win, and they didn't. And then the next thing you know, they come out with hit pieces. So I look at that as a quite frankly, a moniker and something that's good. The truth of the matter is, they took a situation that happened back in early 2000s. What was going on is we had started that company, and it had a division that was handling that was supporting the U.S. Postal Service, and it's actually a success story. So what happened was we had 90 plus investors that were all disparate, and there was no collective bargaining with them. And so you had, during that time, you had the dot bomb, but we had a 17-year license agreement with the U.S. Postal Service. That license agreement was going to take care of basically the Postal Service serving as making an offering for internet certified email, where they served as the authenticator of the transaction happening. Now, everybody in the Social Security Administration was all on board, the Bureau of Printing and Engraving, VA, benefits, and so forth. Everybody was on board. And so we actually had Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch at our doorstep trying to get us to go public. Well, the dot bomb was a little bit of a slide. We recognized that and knew that it wasn't a good idea to go public at that point. And then we had something called 9/11, which obviously hit, and the market was taking a further skid, and it was obviously not a good time then. And the nail in the coffin, at least for that division, was anthrax through the Postal Service. So if you remember back in the early 2000s, there was a scare with the Postal Service where they were having poisons basically sent through the Postal Service. Well, the Postal Service decided to cut their e-commerce initiatives at the time and decided to go ahead and stick to their knitting. Well, we had about $10 million that were invested in that product that we were leveraging, and it was a 17-year license agreement with the Postal Service where we were going to get about a nickel per transaction. The problem with a license agreement is if they don't use it, we don't get paid. So after the anthrax to the Postal Service, it was kind of the nail in the coffin for that division. So we had to cut off that arm, and we tried to go and get with the investors. In fact, I wanted to do an acquisition from inside because I was responsible for the services side. And at the time, I had sent out an offer, got responses back from about a third of the investors, and one that had died, and then the other 2/3 basically never even responded. And part of the concern there was I didn't want to be sued on the back end from an internal acquisition, something that happened. There's no fault of our own. But so we had to go out and we had to find another investor, which we did. We found another investor. His name was Jerry Moyse. He owned Swift Transportation, the Arizona Coyotes, a number of other things, and he invested in the company. And we because there was no collective bargaining, we had to go ahead and basically force the investors to the table and have it go through the court system. So they called that bankruptcy, which it is, but it's a Chapter 11, Section 363 of the Bankruptcy Code, which is a pre-planned acquisition. So it was not a situation where anybody was harmed. All of our employees were safe. In fact, it was invisible to them completely. And we wound up in a scenario where we got through that and got it through the court system, got it taken care of. And in 2003, we had that basically behind us. Well, this same company that they wanted to sit there and talk about questionable business practices on made it in the top 10 with the likes of Booz Allen Hamilton, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, and so forth for information assurance services in 2007, according to Fed sources. So we were one of the top 10, company that was having a harder time because of this effort that was no fault of their own. We wound up turning it around and making it one of the top 10 companies in the country. So that's more of a success story. And that same company, we actually sold in 2009 to a group called Secure Mission Solutions, and I wound up being their chief technologist. Furthermore, we grew that company, and in 2014, that basically the same company that they were talking about was sold to Parsons, and for multiple millions of dollars, over $100 million. I'll just say
Okay.
that.
Sir, how do you plan to leverage your experience uh, with your companies in Congress? How you
Okay.
that go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a successful turnaround. The next organization that I was with was a company called Mandex, and it was on a slide, and I had that do a successful turnaround, making the Washington Business Journal first time in 50 years, and Inc. 5000 twice. In addition to that, I had real life experience in working with the government in trying to get organizations, which are very difficult to do, to work together, to collaborate. So, for an example, I was a co-founder of the Hawaiian Internet Consortium. There we had USGS, Department of Defense, Tripler Army Medical Center, University of Hawaii, all collaborating on putting together a robust network infrastructure to support the needs for the Hawaiian Islands and the Department of Defense's R&D network, so the Defense Research and Engineering Network. In doing that collaboration, we saved the federal government roughly about $16.5 million a year over 20 years that I was involved in that program. Additionally, the first and only memorandum of agreement between Department of Defense and Department of Justice was garnered by me. We've got it together for DEA's evidentiary network, which was having a tough time transposing the evidence and the video and so forth from the border and getting it to DC for the prosecution of these criminals. So I was actually involved in getting that those two organizations to work together where they could tunnel the information through a DoD network and give them the bandwidth needed to go ahead and address that. Furthermore, another example is preventing critical U.S. assets from being sold to the Communist Chinese Party. And it was a company called Global Crossing. And back in the early 2000s, there was a scenario where they had gone bankrupt and they were up for sale in a company called Hutchison Whampoa, which is a Chinese National Party company. They made a bid to go ahead and acquire them. Well, I understood the dangers of that. I knew what some of the problems were. In fact, they have ports on either side of the Panama Canal, which could be used to cause additional problems if ever we were to go to war with China. And essentially, I had made arrangements to meet with Senator Stevens, who was the head of the Defense Appropriations Committee at the time in the Senate. And I met with he and his staff and wound up getting that sale prevented. So we saved the country from having critical U.S. assets sold to the Chinese Communist Party.
Okay, sir. Let's move along. Let's talk about current events.
Yep.
Tonight, Mr. Trump will have a big stage, and he will be making accepting his nomination to go forward with his, be the candidate for the Republican ticket. In light of the recent assassination attempt on Mr. Trump that shook the nation, can you share your thoughts on the attempt, and how do you think it reflects on the current state of politics in our nation?
Well, I was obviously, like many of you, devastated. I couldn't believe that they had tried an attempt on his life. The person in question was actually identified up on the roof earlier on. There's some concerns about the Secret Service and how much in advance they knew, and how could he have even drawn up for a shot. Truth of the matter is, I don't know that we'll ever know. It is a big concern. I'm thankful that Trump had angels around him and essentially saved his life. So it was not an accident that he's still there. I don't believe that anything are accidents. I believe that we're in a situation where we've got to take a stand. We've got to be in a situation where we're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and we'll be blessed because of that.
Okay. And what do you think about his choice of for vice presidential pick? I'm sorry, getting tongue twisted.
That's
Uh,
okay.
long day. Go ahead. What do you
Yeah,
think about?
Kevin, I'd say that he's as far as I can tell, he's a good vice presidential candidate. He is younger than I was expecting Trump to pick. I was actually kind of leaning a little bit more towards somebody else in the field, but I won't go into that. I think that there were a couple of reasons. One is she didn't want the job, but I'll just leave it as a good Arkansas governor would have been an excellent choice. But JD Vance is pretty good. I think the jury's still out. We're all trying to figure out what the details are behind that. And I hope that he will rise to the occasion and be a good representative and good conservative and good patriot for this nation.
Okay. Um, you pretty much sum up my follow-up question. Uh, so you got me there. I want to take a pause because my mom is watching, and today's her birthday. So happy birthday, mom!
Happy birthday, Mom.
All right, let's keep going. Um, Given that the national debt has reached unprecedented levels and federal spending continues to rise, what changes would you push for to address the national debt? Additionally, how do you plan to balance necessary government spending with the need to reduce the deficit?
So for me, it's a pretty obvious answer, and I tell you why. I am a constitutionalist, and as being a constitutionalist, what I want to do is make sure that those government entities that are not constitutionally based, meaning that we, the people, have never given the federal government the enumerated powers to go ahead and open, for example, the Department of Education. And they've used their size and so forth to kind of hide a lot of the things that they're doing. Truth of the matter is, there's a number of organizations that could be just categorically shut down. You've got a Department of Education in every state of this country. You've got a Department of Transportation in every state of this country. And so probably if we can shut down those that are not constitutional, the reasons that the federal government is in place to begin with, then we can probably save a lot of funds, take about half of that to pay down some of the debt, the other half pass it to the states proportionally so that the voters actually have better say on how that money is spent.
Okay, sir, let's talk about government size and taxes. You've mentioned the need for smaller government
Right.
and less taxes. Are there any specific government programs or departments you believe should be reduced or reformed? First question. And what types of tax policies or tax cuts do you support to stimulate growth and benefit your constituents in your district?
Okay. So as far as tax cuts go, I would like to eventually see some tax cuts. I don't know that it can happen right away. As you mentioned, we are in tremendous debt, and we've got to address that problem. If we address that problem, then tax cuts will, in a way, be realized, because if you have deflation out there where costs are going down, the quality of life will wind up going up, even if there aren't tax cuts. So the important thing is that we get rid of those organizations that wind up that aren't constitutional, including Department of Education, Department of Transportation. Take Department of Homeland Security and fold some of that underneath the Department of Defense, and others just get rid of it. Look at a lot of the stovepipes that exist even within the Department of Defense and try and get them to work together, collaborate. Like I said, I had some experience in collaboration. So getting them to collaborate on efforts instead of having stovepipe activities where the same thing is being done in each of the different departments. So I think we have the real chance and real ability to turn this around, but we need to strike fast. We can't sit there and just wait and wait and wait, or put people in office that are going to continue to do the same thing over and over again.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Let's talk about your support for veterans. As a strong supporter of the military, what specific programs or initiatives would you advocate for to support veterans transitioning to civilian life? And with over 2,500 homeless veterans in Florida, how do you plan to address issues such as homelessness and mental health services for veterans? I don't know how familiar. I'm a military vet. I serve my country, but one of the things that I always see happening is we go in, we have our occupation that we're given to, but most times it doesn't translate to civilian life, and
True.
so you can't find a work, you can't find jobs that will translate to civilian life. So you end up having to start over again, and I think for the most part is why most of my compadres end up in the situation that they are. And so I want you to speak on that for me.
And truly, I'd love to be able to solve all of those problems. And I think that we can move in the right direction. So one of the things, and this is, people talk about what happens up there on the national level, and that's important. Don't, it's going to impact the local level as well. But there are some things that we can do at the federal government level that can help our veterans. Now, first of all, I want you to know I'm not only a supporter of our vets. My son is a Marine. He just graduated out of OCS a few months ago. He spent 5 years of enlisted in Okinawa, Japan, and now he's finishing up a couple classes so he can get pinned. I have a son-in-law that's in the Army, so obviously I have a vested interest in making sure our vets and our active duty military are well taken care of and well prepared. That being said, you're right. The transition into the civilian world isn't always easy. When I first started out my career, I worked with there's a Fortune 50 company called Allied Signal that bought Honeywell and changed their name to Honeywell because nobody knew who Allied Signal was. And one of the programs that we had was something called Soft Landing. And what it did is encouraged organizations to go ahead and hire veterans, and they would go ahead and be able to get trained OJT, on the job training, where they can make the successful transition to civilian life. Civilian life is not just affected by the military personnel themselves, but also their families. And one of the things that I've been talking to with some folks around here is how best to get the military personnel integrated back within the family, which isn't an easy thing to do sometimes. I've been gone and out in the field for 2 years, and the family's been used to not having them around. And of course, they have a certain way of life when they're out in the field, and they come home, and that way of life has all changed. So there is some need for some mental health support and those kinds of things taken care of. That being said, one of the things that I want to do for Florida District 8 is to put a research hospital here in Florida District 8. And what that research hospital, the way I can do it in terms of getting federal funds down there, is that you incorporate Veterans Affairs. You incorporate one of the universities and some private industry. And in doing that, we not only attract some of the best doctors around, instead of having them run down to Palm Beach to get paid 3 times as much, we have an ability to go ahead and support our veterans and make sure they're well taken care of, so that anything over a hangnail, they don't need to go to Orlando or Palm Beach for. So it's an important measure of mine, something that I think that needs to be addressed and taken care of. And it large in part is because of our veterans. I think that the research into that is going to attract a number of extremely good doctors, and also on the mental health side.
Okay, great. Audience, there's a number that's now on the screen. If you'd like to call in and voice support from Sir Hearton, you can do that. 321-999-4559. Or if you have a question, you can also call in to the show. You can also pose your questions in the comment section. Okay? You can also post your questions in the comment section, and I'll put them on the screen so you can answer them. So the phone line is not open for questions. Let's continue until we receive questions either in the comments or on the phone. Border security. You've said that support more stringent border policies are needed. What specific measures would you do to introduce to enhance border security and manage immigration more effectively?
Okay, so
Um,
I agree with President Trump. I think we, quite frankly, need to close our borders until we get our own house in order. We need to close our borders and get the people that are in here illegally out. It's not that they may not have an opportunity to come back in the future, but the truth of the matter is we've got people that have gone through the process and done the right thing. And to just allow these illegals to stay here is a smack in the face to all of the people that have come over the border correctly and gone through the process of becoming a citizen. So we want to try and do what we can smartly. There is needs for well trained individuals, and some of those needs can be met through immigration eventually. But right now, I think we need to get our house in order, be America first, make sure that things are taken care of, our resources aren't getting burned up, the taxpayers aren't paying for people coming over the border, and we try and get our own house in order first.
Here's a question, John. How are you different from the leading candidate competitor in your race?
I'm going to put my glasses on just so I can see things too. Well, the leading competitor is a career politician turned lobbyist. So that's the first thing. And I think we have enough lobbyists in DC, quite frankly. We've got a situation where there's concerns about the status quo, and he represents more of the status quo than I do. I'm more of a situation that represents the people, where we're trying to bring this country back to we the people, and we're trying to do what we can in terms of making it one nation under God again.
Okay, let's keep going. Economic development, sir. Brevard County, a significant part of District 8, relies heavily on the space industry. Do you have any plans to support and expand this sector?
So technology is my thing. So I was being a technologist. I've also sworn an oath not to take any PAC money, big tech PAC money, because I don't think that it's right. I think it'd be a conflict of interest. However, what I would say is our space industry is alive and well. I think there's good opportunities for it to grow, but we need to diversify a little bit. And there's other technology areas that we can diversify into. And as I mentioned before, it's a beautiful area here. We should be attracting some of the best talent, the best doctors, the best technologists in the country to bring them here and do what we can to go ahead and have managed growth. So on my side, managed growth means good jobs. It doesn't mean affordable housing so much. I'm not into the 15-minute cities or the efforts with regards to UN or WHO. In fact, I'm 100% against that. What I'm like, and what I think most people in the conservative, patriotic side, we applaud success. We love it when other people succeed, and we will continue to. So I want to try and do what I can to encourage technology jobs here, not just in the space sector, but get technology jobs here that can help support a growing population, but a managed growth on the population side.
Okay. Environmental issues, concerns are especially concerning in the Indian River Lagoon have been a significant concern for local residents for a long time and businesses. What initiatives would you support to tackle these environmental challenges we face in this county?
So you hit the nail on the head in saying tackle. I'm a man of action. I have seen this place for a long time since we put the port in Port Canaveral, where we basically do what I call a pharmaceutical approach to the issue. We sit there and we take a look at the symptoms, but we don't address the problems. So we've got a lagoon that has been dying. There's been some times when it's getting a little bit better. It's a one step forward, two steps back in a lot of cases. But the truth of the matter is we need to actually take action on some of these things and not just try and rely on machinery or planting of oysters. I mean, it's great to do those things, but we need real solutions. We've been paying FIT for a long time to do studies, yet nothing's really been done. And the problem started when we put the port in and the locks that were up there. There was no circular water flow between getting the salinity and the nutrients into the lagoons that were needed. We saw losses of grass. We saw losses of fish life and so forth. And I've got a vested interest in this. I actually have two pieces of property here in Brevard County that are waterfront. And one actually has waterfront on two sides. And I want to make sure that my grandkids can swim in there again. Because right now we're not there. There are too many concerns to have kids swimming in the water again.
Okay. Infrastructure, sir. What with the growth of the space industry and the increasing population in this District 8, especially in Palm Bay, I can tell you
Right.
that
Yep.
infrastructure needs are becoming more pressing. How do you plan to address infrastructure's challenges that we're facing, especially with transportation? Because you know how Brevard is set up, right? It's like
Yeah.
elongated. It's like to travel from point A to point B, to travel to Titusville is like an hour drive. What
So
are we
add
going to
on
do?
Indian River County to that, and then you kind of get an idea of the mileage that I've been putting on my vehicle.
Yeah.
It's been quite painful. But anyway, the my 2 cents on that is we do need some infrastructure improvements. There's no question about that. But a lot of that is local. A lot of that needs to be handled at the county level and handled at the city level. And part of that, what I mean is, I keep hearing, and I've been to many city council meetings, not just in Palm Bay, but other places too. And you hear the tune of affordable housing and so forth. And I think there's a disparity in thought. If we have affordable housing, it would be much better to have good jobs than affordable housing. Affordable housing usually doesn't really mean affordable. In most cases, it just means that organizations like BlackRock and so forth make a lot of money, and they build apartments and so forth that they call affordable. But the truth of the matter is that the prices in regular apartments that are not classified as affordable living are about the same price. And so part of the issue is the impact fees. And I think, you're addressing that tonight in Palm Bay City Council. In fact, I know that they're talking about increasing the taxes. And this is the burden that happens in the city councils when they don't charge the appropriate impact fees to these builders. And they say, it'll wind up increasing the prices of these condos or these apartments or whatever the case may be. Well, the truth of the matter is, it comes from somewhere. It has to be paid. Why should the existing taxpayers wind up having to pay for the affordable housing pieces? The truth of the matter is, we need better jobs. We need good salaries. We need people that can be well trained, and we need to go ahead and increase our efforts for manual labor. So we've got a lot of folks. In fact, there's a school over here that does work with aircraft and does some things for the Space Center. And these are high school students that are doing this. Why can't
That's Ugali, right? I think
Yeah,
that's Ugali High School.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right, you answered my affordable housing question already, so you're one step ahead of me. So let's go to hurricane preparedness. Um, One of the things is we're in Florida.
Right.
We're about to see hurricanes, and how will you continue to support our district to ensure that we're always ready and and working with the county officials as well?
So here's a couple of interesting things, and this is just I want to make sure that it works before I say we wind up doing it. But there's been some talk about putting a port in just north of the Space Force base, long time ago, and I think that it actually might be a good thing. And one of the reasons why is, again, bringing life back to the lagoons is important. But the other piece that might be of advantage is, right now, when you have a storm surge, you have the water that comes in through Sebastian Inlet, but it
Mhm.
has nowhere to go. So it winds up building up, and it takes a lot longer for the water to wind up coming down. Well, one of the biggest issues with insurance and so forth has been flooding. They're concerned about floods. So if the water has no place to escape to, the likeliness of flooding increases. So I think that that could be an answer to help out with both the lagoon and some of the insurance issues that are there, as well as being prepared for some of the hurricanes and so forth that come up. Because at least if we have the outflows from the hurricane, is instead of just all inflows, then we'll be in a better position.
Okay, great. Let's take another question here from this person. Recently, the Brevard County Fire Service demonstrated their need for better pay and better work-life balance at the Brevard County Commission. How would you improve pay and life for the first responders?
So that is, I mean, obviously that's a county issue, but I support our first responders 100%. Truth of the matter is, my wife and I had the need for first responders down in Hollywood, Florida, back in 2020, and where we had somebody run a red light and hit me right in my hip, basically in the door jam. Which I was fortunate that it was the door jam instead of over a little bit. Otherwise, it could have been worse. But ran a red light doing 55 miles an hour, and the first responders were great there, and they came to the rescue and helped us out and made sure that we were okay. And I'm an adamant supporter of our first responders. Our firemen are underpaid. We wind up in a situation where we, candidly, we don't pay them enough. They get trained, we take care of their training, and they wind up leaving and going to some other county because they can make a better wage and they can have a decent life. And we need to raise that scale up to where it's at least in line with the other counties in the state.
Very true. Had a discussion with Mr. Potters, who is running for county sheriff the other night, and I was describing to him where I'm seeing EMTs getting paid $15 an hour.
It's
Like,
nuts.
that's nuts. That's nuts to me.
It's nuts.
My son was working at Chick-fil-A making more than that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
we've definitely got to pay them better than Chick-fil-A, and and the training isn't free, right? So we're invested into them. Why not invest the salaries to go ahead and make sure that we keep them, so we don't have to continually pay for additional training? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
that's crazy. All right, uh, Affordable Care Act. You the Affordable Care Act has been a point of contention among Republicans for a very long time, with
Yep.
many advocating for its repeal or significant modification. As a Republican candidate, what are your views on the Affordable Care Act and Medicare and Medicaid, for that matter? Do you support its repeal? And if so, what alternative solutions would you propose?
Yeah. Well, the free market system has done well for a while, but there's other options that are out there, and I fall in line with this idea of repeal and replace, or significantly modify it. But the truth of the matter is at least for the Affordable Care Act, uh, it doesn't do anything except for shift the costs to other hardworking individuals. And I say that we get in these situations where we have better jobs, the Affordable Care Act becomes less necessary. So that's one of the ways to make sure that we address it, is through good quality jobs and training for individuals. So that's a piece of it. As far as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, this is something the federal government uses a term that I'm not really thrilled about. They talk about it being a entitlement, and they talk about welfare being an entitlement as if they're the same thing. Well, the problem is you pay in to Medicare and Medicaid, you pay into Social Security. That is an entitlement. You are entitled to that money that you put in and the benefits that you're supposed to get out of those. Um, I think we need to protect Social Security. We need to protect Medicare and Medicaid. If we wind up privatizing some of that at some point in time, it is going to be probably a slower transition in doing that. But we need to make sure that we protect it. Otherwise, we're going to have a bigger problem than with our elderly than we do in making sure that they're taken care of now. So I'm a firm believer of trying to do what we can to make sure that Medicare and our Social Security is protected, and that, quite frankly, we become responsible in government and pay those debts back, because that's the big concern. That's who we've borrowed from the most, is ourselves.
Uh, I didn't prepare this question, so help me. Um, uh, Bear with me while I try to formulate it. Accessibility. How accessible are you going to be to your constituents?
So this is home. This is home. There's no question about it. Um, I live here. I love it here. And I don't really want to go up to DC. So if there's a chance where I have the opportunity to do a vote just like this, I would love it. But I understand that I will have to go up to DC, that I will have to work with some of the folks up there on occasion. But as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I want to hold you responsible, and I want you to hold me responsible. Well, the best way to do that is to make sure your voice is getting heard. The only way your voice is getting heard is if I'm down here having town halls and participating in some of the meetings and the groups that are already down here. So I will be 100% accessible, period.
Awesome. All right, great. Remember me. So invite me to those events when you do.
I will. I will.
All right. All right. Your candidate, Mike
Yeah.
Harvardopoulos, is seen as a strong contender right now in the race. And we talked about your differentiation from him and how you look differently. Talk more about your candidacy and how you differentiate from him. What
Yeah.
makes you different?
So, Mike, like I said, I've never been in politics. I'm a businessman, not a bureaucrat. I've never been a career politician. I've never been a lobbyist. I'm a father, a son, a husband, a grandfather. So I'm kind of same as you. The only difference between me and you is I wound up in a situation where I had the time and the ability and capability, and wanted to make a change, wanted to try and do what's right for the people. So that's part of it. There are other parts. I'm not bought and paid for. I've don't take any PAC money. I don't take any. Haven't been a lobbyist where I've used money from either a failed U.S. Senate campaign or something else that has gone out to buy politicians either. So I'm not into the shell games that happen between PACs. In fact, if you go out to my website, there are 5 bills that are teed up and ready to go on day one. And one of them, and the short title is, "If you can't vote, you can't donate." And what does that do? It prevents big business and special interest getting into the political process through donations. It prevents foreign interests from getting into the process through donations. And I think that that's an important thing. It also removes a lot of barriers to entry for some of the people out there that may want to run for this job. I'm not, my ego is not so big that I don't think that anybody else could run for the job and do a good job with it. I think that, in fact, we need to have term limits. We need to address changeovers and make sure that people are working together to get things done.
Which brings me to another question. Bill Posey has been there for a long time.
He has been. Yeah.
All right. What do you think his impact has been on this race as far as your candidacy is concerned?
Well, I'm sorry, obviously, of the way it transpired. Right. I as a constituent, as somebody who voted for him in the past, I was disappointed in the way that it transpired. As a candidate, I still was disappointed. I wanted to have the opportunity to do some debates and didn't get that opportunity. I wanted to find out, for example, why are we $24.5 trillion in debt more in the last 16 years, okay, than we should be, right? We took on another $24.5 trillion in debt in the last 16 years. Why don't people do something to stop that from happening? You know, we've got to put the brakes on this. We've got, I've got 3 kids and 4 grandkids. I don't know if you have kids or grandkids, but if you do, I know you want what's best for them. And the only way we can do that is to get our own house in order, to try and be fiscally responsible and try and make sure that we honor the things from our founding fathers that they put in place, like our Constitution. The laws and so forth are already there. We don't need to create a bunch of new laws per se to go ahead and address the problems of today. We just need to go ahead and enforce the ones that we have.
Okay. All right. We've had a robust interview, and I appreciate you coming onto the platform. I don't see any more questions from the audience, and no one is called in. So I'm going to give you the platform to tell the audience, and this video is going to stay up. So obviously, it's going to get a lot of replay. So they're going to hear from you. They want to know exactly why they should vote for you. So this is your opportunity. I'm going to give you 5 minutes or more. You have plenty of time before I start the next show. So use this platform to get the message out and let them know exactly why they should vote for you. So I'm going to remove my stuff from the screen
Okay.
and have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So my name is John Hearton. I am your anti-establishment candidate. I'm coming to you tonight through the wonderful opportunity to be on the podcast for Palm Bay Live, and I'm going to ask for your vote on August 20th. It is a very important day, not just for me, but for you. It's an opportunity to have you decide whether you want politics as usual or whether you want the necessary change that we need in order to turn this country around and make sure that we bring it back to one nation under God and we the people. That said, it's a difficult decision. I'm running against a guy who's raised about $1 million in the last 7 or 8 weeks, and he is obviously part of the machine. He's a career politician turned lobbyist. He talks about being able to sign the front of the check, but I'm pretty sure he signed the back of the check a lot more. Anyway, I have definitely signed the front of the check a number of times. As I mentioned, I had as much as 750 employees at our peak. I've successfully turned around a couple of companies. I plan on using that experience to help turn around our federal government. I have worked in collaborating with various government agencies to get them to work together and do the right thing while saving taxpayer dollars. And I prevented some critical U.S. assets from being sold. So I understand from a practical standpoint, not just a paper pushing standpoint, about what it takes to get real work done in Washington, D.C. So I look for your vote. You can go to HeartonForCongress.com, Hearton 4FOR, Congress.com, and you'll find out more and take a look at the issues where you'll see 5 bills that are teed up and ready to go. One of them deals with term limits as well, which is a very important part to me. I think that we need to restrict some of the access for Congress and make sure that they are not around and doing the backdoor deals and the insider trading and all the other things that they get rich while you don't. So for me personally, I have considered this a investment in America. It's an investment in our future. It's an investment in our children, our grandchildren, and our future generations. That said, I have put $200,000 into my campaign out of my own pocket with full knowledge that I might not get that back, but in hopes that we'll go ahead and be in a situation where we can better our future for our kids and our grandkids. I also know that this is a pay cut for me. If I'm working full time, it's a considerable pay cut. In addition, I have to give up ownership in a couple of companies. So a lot of you may say, is this guy crazy? Well, you might be right. Truth of the matter is, I'm crazy in love with America. I love my country. I love the people here, and I want to do what's right for our country and our future generations. I ask that you can do whatever you can to help support, whether it's through donating your time, your money, or a bit of both, or anything that we can do to help spread the word and make sure that we have this grassroots campaign be a successful opportunity, not for a win for me, but a win for us. So I thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to getting your vote, earning your vote on August 20th of next month. So it's coming around pretty quick. Do what you can. Make sure that you vote. Get out the vote and vote for John Hearton for U.S. Congress for Florida District 8. Thank you very much.
And thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining me tonight to get your message out. And I appreciate you coming on, and your people in the comments saying they got your they got your vote. So they're we voted for you. So Chris Perry says, got my vote. Great. Okay. This person says, John Hurton, you got my vote. So yeah, there's people who are, you know, very
I guess
much.
the big question is, Kevin, do I have your vote?
And that let's say because I have to remain neutral.
I understand.
So but that's what that is. Oh, but we had a good show, and please feel, I will from time to time I may tap into you
Please
if I'm
do.
writing an article and I need your input on something that will help get the message out about your candidacy as well.
Please
So
do. Thanks.
have a great night. Brevard County will be back live in about 7 minutes with an interview with David Kern. He's running for Palm Bay City Council, and I have several interviews lined up for next week. Several. Next week is going to be a pack week, and so feel free to like, comment, and share. Um, and get especially this podcast that we did just now. Please share with your family, your friends, let them know about his candidacy and why they should vote for him. Have a great night.
Kevin,
See you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.